So I wanted to ask about becoming an Aryan, a Sotapanna or higher, or becoming one with the right view, or entering jhanas. Are these things accidental? Can you stumble into them? Can you stumble into right view and then lose it?
Or forget about it.
Or forget about it. Can you forget how?
Not the slightest. Otherwise, if that were the truth, we wouldn't need the Buddha and his teachings and all the teachings he'd done and all the instruction and all the repetitive effort, encouragement and everything else. The Buddha wouldn't be going around saying whatever is to be obtained by manly effort, manly dedication, manly determination, and that's what I've obtained. No, he would say, oh look, I stumbled upon this.
And how did you do it?
Exactly. So if it's the right understanding, you will know how you've done it, because it's knowing how to do it means that's what the right understanding is. So the right view means understanding what the right view is. That's your right view. It's not the experience you had that felt right, but you don't quite know what it was or how it was or how it came to be. Same with jhana, same with any other establishment of composure in your mind and discernment, comprehension. That's why the sutras would say, like I think on many different occasions, but the one I'm thinking of, I think it was about Venerable Sariputta, when he was going through the various establishments of mind through like discernment and reflection, and says knowingly these states, knowingly these experiences have been discerned, knowingly they were present, knowingly those ceased.
Knowingly are surmounted.
Yes, knowingly, basically with full understanding for their duration. This is what this is. This is freedom from sensuality. This is freedom from ill will. Oh, this is the right view. And that's what the Buddha said. Sotapanna, when he described Sotapanna, I think in that Samyutta Nikaya, he was, who's Sotapanna? Sotapanna is one who knows that he knows, and it's not just joking around or saying something funny. No, that was the most accurate description. He knows that he knows. So it's a reflexive knowledge upon his knowledge, or full understanding. It's not something happened to him that felt right, and then he spent the next 6 months trying to interpret it in a pleasing manner, and then decided that he must be a Sotapanna because of that experience. It's basically putting the cart in front of the horse. As in, through discerning what the right context is, through discerning what the right view is, you can get then to do it rightly, by knowing the right context. But you can't accidentally do it rightly and then induce the context on account of it. So the wrong view is abandoned not through like accidentally doing the right things, and then you realize, oh, so this must be that right view. The wrong view is abandoned through understanding what the right view is, or understanding what the wrong view is, why wrong view is wrong. That's what the Buddha said. He knows that he knows. Or he said he understands skillful as skillful. He understands right as right, and he understands wrong as wrong. He understands means that context remains unchanged, imperturbable, regardless of what the experience is on a particular level. But for most people, it's the particular level experience that they're chasing, some novelty releases and energies and whatnot, and clarities of mind that occur on account of something, whatever, and then they try to read into it. And that's what I mean, it's basically putting the second, which is the first. And that's why in the suttas, those who did get the right view would say that to the Buddha. Oh, it is like putting the first, which should have been first. That which I was placing second, you put it to be first. Now I understand. Or turning things that have been upside down. It's that perversion of the basic order. Me first, everything else second. But you realize everything else is first, I am second, in regard to my experience as a whole. So whether you had experience that you never had before, this great release of energy and compassion and loving kindness and peace, that's absolutely fine. But what is that in your experience? Oh, it was just a pleasing, peaceful experience. Great. Is there understanding in regard to it? Do I know exactly why it came to be, how it came to be? Do I understand it, that it's skillful? As in what the Buddha said, do I understand skillful as skillful? Or am I just enjoying the fact that it was pleasing to me? So if there is no understanding of the nature of that state, means you are still regarding yourself as the most important thing. Isn't this happened to me and that's why it's special? But if you start putting everything in question, including the most peaceful experiences you had, you will then start questioning your own existence through that. You will be refusing to place your gratuitous notion of self as the center of that experience. And by that I mean, you had a novelty, peaceful experience that was very pleasing, but then okay, so what are the characteristics of this experience? Do I know how it came about? Not quite. Do I know how long it will stay? Not quite. Do I know why is it good? Except that it's pleasing for me. Oh, am I also trying to prolong it? Will it be affected if it changes? Will I suffer on account of it disappearing? All these things would be sort of pointing at the context you need to discern. And that's the thing, context is not in particular manifestation of the things, it's a background of it. That's why context is on the level of proper mindfulness, as we spoke before. So if all these questions, you get to realize, okay, so this peaceful state, yeah, it's much better, much less unwholesome than, sensuality or any other types of pleasure I know, but then at the same time, it has arisen for me, in my experience, I have no control over it, I don't know how it came about, I did not create it. Let those questions endure, let those characteristics endure a bit, don't jump at the answers or conclusions. Just feel that as the state of your being. Okay, so this is pleasant, but I don't know how it came about. And then naturally, you will be more cautious you'll be more cautious in regard to losing sight of it. You'll be more cautious in regard to sort of gratuitously at face value wanting it longer, protecting it. Because it came to be and had nothing to do with you. Yeah, it's pleasing, but pleasure then came to be, has nothing to do with you. In other words, if you don't lose sight of it, you're not going to get blindly attached to it, to put it simply. And if you're not blindly attached to it, then you won't be gratuitously, blindly defending it. Or trying to squeeze what you read in the suttas and interpret your experience in that manner. There won't be need for it. If you truly understood it, you understood what the suttas talk about it on the basis of that experience. But if you haven't truly understood it, that means you have to spend time tying loose ends. And this is maybe what that meant. Oh no, at no point during that tying of loose ends do you question your experience. As in, that experience of novelty of peace you had, that's it, that's a fact. Now it's just a question of finding the right interpretation for it. And what I'm saying is, that's a completely wrong way around. Through understanding what the right interpretation is, you get to recognize what right experiences are. That's why Sotapati or any other establishment of matters cannot be done by accident. That's why you need utterance of another, and faith in that, and properly attending to it. Because without an utterance, without the external criteria that you took on faith, how can you repeat something sufficient amount of times, which is many times, without any apparent result to it? Why would you repeat it? It's just impossible. It's even statistically impossible. So even in theory, unless you know that something should be repeated and adhered to, and unless you understand it and unless you have faith in it, you cannot possibly do that sufficient amount of time, because there is no apparent result. So that's why you cannot establish any of those things accidentally. And if something accidentally happens, means, it happened on the level of particular experience. But that's not what matters. What matters is understanding of it, the context I'm talking about. So that's why the context comes first. That's why the right view comes first. The whole Noble Eightfold Path is rooted in the right view, every single factor of it. Not other way around. Not like I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then oh look, I must be doing it rightly. Now, through knowing what's doing it rightly, you get to recognize the doing of right things. And that's, you might even be surprised. What you thought was peaceful and lofty, once you develop the right context, you realize actually it wasn't. And things that you never kind of gave them a second look, you realize, no, that was actually closer to the right view. But you can only have that criteria when you have the context that can judge that criteria from. And the context is something that's understood on the basis of things you experience, not something that's read into it. So if you want to develop something, you need to have an overall picture of what you're trying to develop. If you want to build something, you need to have an overall picture of what you're trying to build. And then see what matches it through your efforts. Not like just start building left and right and suddenly, miraculously becomes that thing. But you have no idea how you arrived at it. How can you build a house if you don't have a notion of what house is? And again, that's something, if a person were to self-question, it would become apparent. How can I free myself from suffering if I don't understand what freedom from suffering is? If I just use criteria of my current feeling towards freedom of suffering? How can you free yourself from suffering when only suffering is necessary, basically? When only the necessity of suffering is your only criteria. So I don't know what to do in terms of freeing myself from suffering, but I'm doing all these things to free myself of suffering. But you don't know how, where, and why would those things free you from suffering. You just hope that through doing these random things, the context of freeing from suffering will be reached. So that's what I mean. No amount of methods, techniques, or whatever, like just through sheer doing, can suddenly bring the revelation. Trying to discern revelation, the right view, that's what can bring the right view. And then whatever you do through it will be right. But not other way around. You're not going to concoct the right view through randomly doing these separate things that then magically just create this Frankenstein of a view.
There's a difference between like my opinion and then the right view.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you're unaware of the context of your own situation, as in fundamental context of, am I free from suffering? Am I not free from suffering? That's it. That's the basis. And you don't need to go anywhere further from that. That can remain the criteria throughout. Whether you're Putujana or Arya until you become an Arahant. Am I completely free from suffering or not? But if you're not aware of that, then yeah, your opinions would be basically a secondary kind of induced points of view on account of taking your experience for granted. So instead of your opinions questioning your experience, your opinions are just being built on top of your experience. So that's what I mean, like people would have these like genuine experiences of, sudden peace or release or something, but instead of, okay, that's good, there is a hope that I can develop this peace. But instead of recognizing that that can only be developed through full understanding of the nature of it, they don't question it, they just take it as it happened, that's it, now it must be real forever. So now it's just a question of sort of defending it, protecting it, or prolonging it. Through trying to manipulate the environment and go on a longer retreat and then do this and avoid talking to people and to not disturb your peace. But you realize what you are defending is not even your peace. You're defending that experience as a whole, which if you were to look closer, you would realize it has arisen on its own, with its own characteristics and signs and contexts. And you just took it for granted that it's yours. Why? Because it was very agreeable to you. That's why most people who even commit years and years to meditation, they end up meditating with their sensuality. As in, sensuality is the base criteria for their meditation. What is agreeable, what's disagreeable. Now, you cannot, that is just a necessary way how you have to start. But one thing is to have that as a necessary basis. In other words, Putujana has to start somehow, and it's not going to be right. But another thing is to never grow out of it.
So how can we know if we are making progress?
Again, context whether you're free from suffering or not. Is what you're doing, is all of your experiences you had as a result of your, like whatever, intense meditations and pondering on the teachings, that's all fine, but overall, am I now more free from suffering than I was before? Will I be more affected, or will I be less affected? Or will I be affected at all by things that would... And again, I'm not affected right now. No, but imagine your loved ones dying around you. Imagine you losing your senses, your health, getting sick, loss of wealth, loss of home, loss of whatever. Imagine it and see, is there fear in regard to it? If there is a fear in regard to it, if there is like, I don't want to look at this, you can't then at the same time say, but I'm free from suffering. That's what I mean. If you start developing that context through that questioning, you're going to start developing self-honesty as well.
Because you can ask a lot of people, do you suffer?
Yeah.
And a lot of people,
say no.
lots of people
exactly.
will say, no, I don't. Yeah. But it's more like, in the past when I was a child, I didn't know what I was doing. I was suffering, things were new to me.
Sure.
But now I'm older, I can deal with things much better.
Exactly.
So I'm Nibbana.
Yeah. So you need to upgrade your context. That's what I mean. Yeah, I don't suffer now. Okay, that's fine. That's your first answer. Now ask a further question. Why am I not suffering? Is it because I'm an arahant? Or is it because there's nothing currently inducing suffering in me? If your answer is, it's because I'm an arahant, great. You don't need to do anything ever again. You're done. You wouldn't be even listening to this talk then. But if your answer is, I probably still could suffer in some extreme scenarios, means you can't then say that you are free from nature of suffering. Because there is no extreme scenario for somebody who is free from suffering. Somebody who is free from the nature of suffering. Somebody who is free from liability to suffering cannot suffer on any account of any particular suffering. Big or small, extreme or not, he cannot suffer. So, by keeping that context in the mind, you keep your practice along the right lines. You won't stop making the effort, you won't get complacent, nor will you get sort of deluded on account of your own, attainments and whatnot, experiences you had, that then people told you there must have been that thing or this thing or whatever. If somebody needs to tell you what that must have been, it means you don't really know what it was. If you don't know what it was, how can you say you're free from doubt in regard to it? How can you say that you know that you know? I know that I know. Not through like some blind kind of religious fundamentalism, but just, no, genuinely I understand how it came to be. I understand how it ceased. I understand what it is. I understand wholesome is wholesome. No method or technique can teach you that, except your own effort and self-questioning and reflection with the guidance of the suttas and the Buddha's instruction.